We're at Two Beards Coffee Roastery in Swakopmund. I've got Mark with me. We're learning all about coffee, the legend of where it came from, where it comes from now and all the different parts of the world, how the roasting process can change the taste of a coffee bean. In more of the science of coffee, Mark, we've got a whole bunch of different contraptions in front of us. How does how you make the coffee change the taste of the coffee?
But bottom line is the way we brew the coffee will actually highlight different undertones and different flavor profiles. So if you're running an espresso with a nice cappuccino in your favorite little coffee shop that you love going to, those espresso machines are designed for a really nice fine grind coffee. It takes all the flavor out in about 30 seconds extraction time, but it leaves most of the caffeine behind, but you get all this lovely flavor profile, which we then pair with milk, and you get a beautiful cappuccino or a flat white or a latte, depending on your preference.
It doesn't actually have a high caffeine content.
That's why it's a nice little nightcap when you're sitting at the restaurant, because it's actually got the lowest form of caffeine as a drink. Something like a Chemex or a plunger, and that has got a far higher residency time, far more extraction, so you actually get more caffeine coming out of that than you do out of an espresso. Yeah.
Okay.
One such one here is the Chemex. The Chemex is a delightful contraption that was designed in the 1800s, but became particularly famous when the TV show Friends was on. You'll see there's always a Chemex in the background and they're making coffee. Won all sorts of New York design awards because of its particular shape and the wooden structure that they put on. But again, it's scientific. Very particular conical ratio, very particular coarseness of filter paper, particular grind coarseness, particular water temperature, and then we're getting a very an extraction which is all soft and elegant and highlights soft undertones. So if you've got a nice berry coffee, or you've got something that's got some unique fermentation or something which is more about the intense flavors, the cardamoms, the sugars, we'll do a V60 for you later, we'll do a siphon. There's so many different techniques, and if you line them next to each other, all with the same coffee, you're going to be tasting different things, which is quite cool. So yeah, the science of coffee is not just related to roasting, it's also the way we brew. Let me just get some water through there. The other really important factor with brewing of coffee is the water quality. As a vintner, tell me, when you open your tap, all those things will greatly affect the flavor of the cup of coffee you got, because it's about 98% water that you're drinking, all right? So that's quite key. Here at Two Beards, we use a reverse osmosis water, which is then pH neutral. pH should be at about 6.7, 6.8, should have certain salts in place, but we found that the consistency of an RO water is actually better than the fluctuations of the local water that we've got, which is sometimes very high in sulfates. Yeah, we're going to be putting about 45 grams of coffee into the Chemex. There we go. Nice coarse grind. We're going to be brewing an Ethiopia Guji here. So it's a coffee that is naturally grown in the Guji forest. It's got a little bit of fermentation in the process. So if you put your nose on that, you can actually get a hint of almost a wine-like bit of berry, hopefully. Yeah. What's important is that you can make this at home. It just has to have a little bit of attention to detail. So what I'm going to do now is just pour a little bit of water over all the coffee. Make sure that we are getting it all nice and wet. And then we're going to allow it a moment just to activate. You'll see it's going to release all the carbon dioxide, all the other volatile compounds are going to be coming out. Kind of bubbles a bit like lava, which is quite cool. Yeah. Once that settles down, then we're going to start pulsing some water through that, and we'll get a very elegant taste profile at the end. This coffee is known for a nice berry note. It's got a little bit of a hint of chocolate.
You spoke about a nice coarse ground on this one. Espresso is a very fine ground. Yeah. How does the way it's ground actually influence the flavor profile?
So you're grinding, the finer you grind, obviously you've got a greater surface area for extraction. So here we're looking for soft notes. We want to get all the flavor, but we want to get it slowly. We're not in a rush. On espresso, we want it inside 20 to 24 seconds. We want that surface area to maximize. We want all the flavor, not a bang for your buck, right? Yeah, so this is more of a slowly process. Bit more theater.
And you mentioned the temperature of the water?
Yeah. So we run at about 90 degrees, 88 to 90 degrees is good for brewing of coffee. Beyond that, you start to burn the coffee itself as you're extracting. So anything over 92 degrees, you're probably burning about 20 to 30% of the flavor off.
And not boiling kettle water.
So never boiling kettle water. Yeah. When your kettle just starts to kind of hiss at the bottom, makes little bubbles, it's a good time to turn it off and start brewing. You can see it's crusted over nicely now. So we're going to just pulse a bit more water through. So we're going to, probably over about a 3 to 4 minute brew, get enough water through here that we're extracting all the flavor.
And now you're going round and round and then back and forth.
I'm trying to make sure that I get as much of the coffee as possible, right? I don't want to actually leave the coffee behind. Don't want to create a big vortex where we've got preferential flow through. Trying to maximize to get as much coffee getting saturated as possible.
But you're not having this one quickly.
No, this was about the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, watching it bubble through.
Yeah.
Watching that foam on the top. I even love the way the color is climbing up the full.
Yeah, quite stunning. You can really get lost in terms of all these different brew techniques. This coffee you can very easily prepare at home just with a general kettle. There's a couple of nice marks on the glass, and you can actually just fill it to that process with about 40 grams of coffee in the top. So it's something you could do quite easily at home. We take it a bit more seriously here, so we do the preparations through the scales and all that kind of thing. Sunday morning, we use a Bialetti mocha pot at home. There's no nicer thought than getting up, switching the Bialetti on, going and sitting out on the veranda, listening to the birds, hear the Bialetti whistle a bit. Yeah, you can hear it finally brew, and you go and have a nice coffee. So we've done a 45 gram coffee to a 500 ml brew. That's within what we call the golden coffee ratio. In terms of brewing, we're looking at about a 10 to 1 or a 15 to 1, depending on what we're looking at, water to coffee. And then it becomes personal taste too. Obviously, a really good barista will decide, I'm looking to extract these flavors. I'm going to do it slightly lighter, or I'm going to do it slightly darker. There we go, sir.
Lightness to it.
Very nice and clean. Almost looks like a bit like tea. All good. So we're really getting the soft notes on that. You put on the nose, you get the fermented and the berry a bit. Yeah. Why do we smell things before we eat or drink them?
Because it helps our taste.
Yeah. 60% of your taste receptors are in your nasal passages. Yeah. So that's why we know when you're cutting a pineapple and it starts to salivate at the back already, or an onion bite or anything like that. Or if you know that a piece of meat actually is bad by the time you smell it. Yeah. All because of a very clever biological system.
So light and...
So light, but at the same time, it's got an intensity to it. Quite extraordinary.
There's definitely no... Yeah, it's not overwhelming. You can get the flavors without being, too coffeeed out, I suppose, that there's too much.
And you don't need to add sugar. You don't need to add milk. It's soft, it's sweet, it's elegant. So that's the really nice thing about this brew process. Yep. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Cool.